everyone, it's Anthony here at Talk and Review, and today we're looking at episode 2 of season 8 of Game of Thrones, titled A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. As I mentioned in the review for episode 1, this episode is very, very similar in style, i.e. there's not a lot of action going on. In fact, there's not any action really at all in this episode. It's very much focusing on the characters around Winterfell and what they're about to embark on, what they're about to go through, and how they kind of build themselves up to deal with that. So whilst there wasn't a lot of action going on in this episode, there was actually quite a lot of ground covered in the episode. So I'm just going to touch on a few of those moments that I think are worth discussing with you guys. First of all, Brienne vouching for Jaime at the start of the episode. I think this was really in character for Brienne to do the honourable thing as she has always done, and almost repaying the favour to Jaime of saving his life for him saving her life. And I think it was really quite nice that she was able to do that for him as he was able to do that for her in the past. I think that was really quite nice. Daenerys seems to be slipping further and further away from what everyone is there for at the minute. Every time that she's talking to someone, every time that she's discussing anything with anyone, it always seems to revolve around the throne. Everything that she talks about is about that throne and about her claiming what is rightfully hers. And I feel like she's missing the point of being where she is right now, even though she uses it to almost kind of befriend Sansa a little bit. So there's a scene in this episode where they sit down together to talk about why she's there and what she's doing, and it revolves around Jon and her love for Jon. And ultimately she wants to fight for him. But at the same time, when you hear her talk to anyone else about why she's doing what she's doing, it's always about the throne. So she's extremely conflicted. And I don't know if it's self-conflicted or just the way that she's playing the game, but she very much chooses her time to say what she's there for to the people that she's around. I think that she's trying to manipulate a few people at the same time, and I'm not too sure if it's working with the stubbornness of the northern people, especially Sansa. So as I mentioned in the last review, Bran and Jaime eventually got to sit down and talk to each other about the events that happened. And it was quite interesting, really, because Jaime was expecting Bran to be at least a bit emotional about what he's doing or about what has happened before. But Bran, in his three-eyed raven state at the minute, is pretty much dead to the situation. He pretty much sees it as it is. If you hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be where I am now, almost. And if I'm honest, it kind of fell flat a little bit for me. I was expecting something at least, but it just fell a little bit flat that moment, which was a little bit unfortunate, but I suppose it's insignificant in comparison to what is going on. An odd moment in this episode was between Arya and Gendry. Now, there seems to have been something that's been building up between these two characters since being at Winterfell. Not so much in the previous seasons. They were together in the previous seasons, but they're only really ever travelling companions. But ever since they've been together at Winterfell, there seems to be a little bit more to it than that. And in this episode, we got to see how much more it is to that. And I'm not too sure if I enjoyed it. It seems really strange that you kind of have this connection with Arya, that you almost still see her as a little girl, and it just seemed a little bit weird, her doing what she did. And yeah, it just didn't really feel right. So I'm sure a lot of people were very satisfied with, the fact that those two kind of got together, but I'm just not sure it was the right move for me. Personal preference, I guess. So Jon finally tells Daenerys that he is a Targaryen. It's a moment that I wasn't too sure how he was going to do it, or when he was going to do it, or even if he was going to do it. And to be honest, Daenerys pretty much reacted exactly how I would have expected her to react as a Targaryen, with anger, with almost a little bit of jealousy, and the fact that she just didn't believe him because it's so convenient that Bran, his brother, and his best friend, Samwell, just managed to basically say, oh, by the way, Daenerys doesn't have the claim to the throne, you do. And I think for her, it kind of just really cements the fact that she really doesn't feel like she belongs here, and she's being pushed out at every moment, especially obviously with the interaction with Sansa earlier on. And now the one person that she feels like she can be comfortable around is now almost her biggest threat. I don't know if he really wants it, and he never really mentioned it because we got interrupted within the scene, but I don't know if he would turn around to say to her, I actually don't want the throne. It's never something that Jon has really wanted to do in the past, even though that he has always been pushed into leadership. It's never something that he wanted to do. He never wanted to be the Lord Commander. He never wanted to be King of the North, yet he somehow managed to be that. So I don't know if it's a case of he will be it if he has to be, but I don't necessarily think that he wants to rule as Daenerys does. And the last moment I think it's worth talking about is the reason that this episode is named what it is, and that is Brienne being knighted by Jaime. And I think this is absolutely the best scene in the entire episode. So we find ourselves in one of the halls within Winterfell with a lot of the main characters gathering around a big fire, keeping warm, telling stories, and Brienne's name gets mentioned as Sir Brienne, but then corrected by Tyrion to say Lady Brienne, and it's questioned why she isn't a Sir, and she almost kind of shrugged off to say I never wanted to be a knight. She obviously has always wanted to be a knight her entire life, but because she is a woman, she's always been denied that title and that role. And it was unexpected what happened, but it was lovely at the same time. And because Jaime is a knight, he has the ability to knight others. So he knights Brienne in a lovely scene, and it was really nice to see that whilst this impending doom is looming around everyone for the entire scene, there's this real nice moment of forgetting about everything and just focusing on the happiness of one individual. And I think it's probably the first time we've ever really seen Brienne smile, and it's just something that you just don't expect from the episode, but a really, really wonderful inclusion, and I'm really, really glad that they've managed to get that in there to break up, like I said, the impending doom of the entire episode. So the overall feel of the episode is essentially just building up to the inevitable, the Battle of Winterfell, which I'm pretty sure that we're going to get in the next episode. And ultimately what it is people essentially just almost saying goodbye, but really just kind of tying off those relationships really, and just fleshing out more characterization of a couple of people that we've wanted to kind of see together. And I think that these two episodes have done that quite nicely, whereas it could have gone straight into all-out battle, but I think that now that you've got a little bit more investment in these characters and doing what they've done over the last two episodes, even more so than, you know, the last 7 series we've seen, now new relationships have developed, you're more invested in these characters, and I think that it's a smart move by the creators of the show to get these 2 episodes just to focus on that, so that the last 4 episodes, I can only assume, are going to be all-out carnage. That's when your deaths are going to be, that's when your twists are going to be, and that's where you're going to really feel like it's a crazy Game of Thrones episode each week. And I think that by doing these 2 episodes like the way that they've done it, allows those last 4 episodes to be more impactful and more dramatic, so that the impact is greater on anything that does happen. So overall, I really did quite enjoy this episode. I don't think it was as good as the first episode in my opinion, but they're very similar in style and in content. So I'm sure next week the review is going to be much different. It's going to be full of action given the fact how this episode ends, and I really cannot wait to dive into that. I'm super excited for what's to come, considering what we've had already. So what did you think of the episode? Do you agree with me that it's good build up for the next 4 episodes, or do you think it's just wasteless chaff and a lot of filler just trying to fill out the hours? Leave us a comment in the comment section below, and make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well. Also make sure you check us out on Facebook and Instagram, where we're putting out regular updates. See you next week for episode 3. Peace!